Hello BJD fans, I'm Venetica, and this is part 1 of my Hujoo action doll female body review. Part 1 covers posing ability, part 2 covers aesthetics, it's a photo gallery with text commentary. If you want to check that out, the link is in my description. Our model here is Dana. She's 43 centimeters, which is MSD size. She's on the small bust. This doll is made out of ABS, not resin, but there is a resin version of this body available. Hujoo designed this body with this cool gear system. As a fun little experiment, I've removed the gears from the left side of her body, so we'll see how that impacts posing. Now, I normally start by removing her head cap, but in this case, it's really difficult to pry it off, so I just started with it off. So, the knot is visible. She has an S-hook in there. Originally, Hujoo was putting O-rings in these dolls, which is really uncool, and they finally started putting S-hooks in there instead. It arrived to me flat like this, and I was able to prop it up, but I noticed that it actually restricted her neck movement, so I just left it flat like that. Her head cap is held on by these pegs. So her neck movement is okay, but it pops right back, so I'm sure sueding would help that. She can move back decently far, and she can't move forward. So her shoulders is where these gears start coming in, and I'll show you what that looks like. Pretty cool. And this is the improved shoulder socket where they put a silicone ring in there. Originally it was some kind of plastic deal where it was hard to move her arm and it was felt like it was going to break. I know a lot of owners ended up sanding that area. I've never had one of the original dolls, so I'm not familiar with it. But I like the silicone ring because it really holds her arm in place, but it also moves pretty smoothly. So that was a smart idea. And she has typical range. Without the gear, it doesn't make much difference in her shoulder, but since that ring isn't being utilized, her arm just falls down. Her elbows are double jointed, and they have a peanut piece. So you bend it that far, and then all the way. And that's as far as you can move it with the gear. Without the gear, you'll notice that first off, you kind of have some crazy stuff going on here. It tends to pop out, but you can fix it. But you can bend it as far as it'll go. So that's a pretty big difference. It might actually be worth taking out the gear there. One thing I noticed about her elbows is that she's restricted to only bending toward her body with or without the gear. And what I mean by that is there's no way to like swing her arm out in another direction. So one thing you can do with or without the gear, it's easier without, is force the peanut piece around. Although without the gear it's a little weird. So that's the only way to get her to do that. There's no in between. Her wrists don't have an S-hook, but they have a plastic hook in there with a cap piece. And you move it, I mean it's okay, but it also snaps right back. And she could turn it. She has a torso joint, which I have a little problem with because she's always being forced to lean back. So there's no way to really prevent that. But she is a good sloucher, which she's definitely going to need for sitting, and I'll show you that. And she can move side to side pretty well, but because of that lean, sometimes it just falls right back. Her hip joints have these giant gears in them. Originally I did remove this gear, but I had some pretty screwy results. It's just all over the place, it was jutting out, can't keep it straight, so I definitely don't recommend taking that out. So when she sits down, you can see she's not very good at it. She's basically just lounging. So that's why it's so important to pop the torso forward. But one thing she can do with her hip joints, which I've never seen another doll do, is move them back. So that is awesome that she can do that. I wish more BJDs could do that. She can't spread them or anything. She has femoral joints, which have this wave pattern inside, and that makes it really smooth to move. But the only thing is you're kind of restricted. I'll call it cardinal directions, but it's still cool that you can do that. And another cool feature is that you can pull it out and prop it up like that. So she can get really close to her leg. And it is a little wobbly, but the fact that you can do that is just awesome. I did have a little problem with excess plastic here. Oh, covering the holes. You can still see some remnants of it. I just took a pair of scissors and cut those off. So her ankles are just like her elbows. They have a peanut piece in there. Pin it like that. That's as far as you can get it with the gear. Without the gear, you have the same issue as the elbow, where you end up with this sometimes. But it can bend all the way and these two pieces can touch. So that's cool. It's not really too necessary on the legs, because if you're going to have her sitting down on them, the pressure's enough to hold them together. But if you're not planning on having her sit down on them, it might be worth it to be able to bend it that far. Her ankles are similar to her wrists, but a little different. So they have the cat piece. They have this little tiny peg and hole system on either side. It's actually already broken on this side, but it's not really necessary anyway. The biggest limitation is that you can't turn it. You can force it to turn, but it's pretty restricted, and you can tell by the shape it's not meant to do that. And when you go to move it, initially I was a little confused because it didn't really want to stay anywhere, but you can pull it out all the way so it hooks on, and then she could extend her foot. And you could do it the other way. Now her feet also have these panels in there. In fact, if you look at the hook, you'll see that it's actually a separate piece. So I personally don't see any use for that. I don't see how that's beneficial at all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems pretty useless to me. So yeah, I really question that. So I think this gear system was a pretty smart idea. Let me fix her up. There we go. It's pretty unique, but I think it does end up restricting some areas, so maybe Hujoo can work on that a little bit. But I do like the idea overall. So that's it for part 1. If you'd like to check out part 2, link is in my description. Thank you for watching.